Hello. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the conference theater. My name is Kelsey. I'm the new executive director for CougsFirst. And I first just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to kick off the Spokane show with this little fireside chat. I'm sorry to not roll out and bring a fire for you, but I'm hoping that we just get to know a little bit more about what's going on and, I don't know, connect as Cougs as we like to do. So let me tell you a little bit about our guests up here on stage. Derek Dice anchors the evening news at KXLY 4 News Now. He won an Emmy Award for sports reporting in 2009, a Moses Lake native, and in 1999 graduate of Washington State's Edward R. Murrow School of Communication. Derek has worked in Spokane since 2004 and at KXLY since 2009. Since 2013, Derek has also been a member of the radio broadcast team for Washington State University Athletics, hosting pre-game and post-game shows for football and occasionally doing play-by-play for football, basketball, and baseball. Let's give him a little round of applause. Come on in. Don't be strangers. And then we are also joined by Dr. Elizabeth Cantwell. She is Washington State University's 12th president and the first woman to hold a position in the university's 135-year history. In April of this year, Dr. Cantwell came to Washington State University from Utah State University, where she successfully led a $1.3 billion annual operating budget spanning across the state of Utah in a 30-campus system. Prior to her role at Utah State University, Dr. Cantwell held senior leadership positions in research and innovation at the University of Arizona and Arizona State University, as well as leadership roles at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and at Oak Ridge and Los Alamos National Laboratories. And we all have cool shoes. Now, please give them a warm welcome. I'm going to get out of the way and let you enjoy this conversation. Go Cougs.
All right, well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And hello to all my fellow Cougs here. Nice to see some familiar faces in the crowd. And welcome to the Spokane CougsFirst show. Obviously, as you know, we're here to chat with our new president, Dr. Cantwell. And Dr. Cantwell, let me just start this way. You were hired back in February, started a little while later. Just what's it been like so far? Do you feel like you're kind of still drinking out of a fire hose at this point?
Well, we all are in higher education. The fire hose does not stop. From the perspective of getting into the groove of being here, maybe a little bit. But there's a lot going on, folks. There is a lot going on. So I think the groove is constant change.
Yeah, and how have you adjusted to life in Pullman? It's
I
a
like
different
Pullman.
place.
I mean, those of you that know me know I've lived in a lot of small towns. I raised all my kids in towns that are smaller than Pullman, and so they're not all the same by any stretch. But I like that. I like that kind of place. I travel a lot, though. I'm on the road 60-70% of my time. So if I need that urban experience, which I don't necessarily need, I got it in Seattle. I'm just about to go to Philadelphia. So I've got all kinds of other stuff going on, but I like it. And I live in the president's house, and I like that. Yeah. It's big, I will tell you. Sometimes my nephew's living with me now, and he's fabulous. He's 22, and he has a dog, and it's great to have a young man around. It's like, can you carry my suitcase for me? But most of the time, it's just me and the cats.
Very nice. All right, well, as Kelsey mentioned in the intro, I've been part of the Cougar broadcast team since 2013, and so we are going to talk a little bit about sports here tonight. You've said...
I expect that.
Yeah, fan experience is front and center for you at WSU. So what are you most excited about as we head into the next season?
You know, those of you that go to college football games elsewhere, and we were just at Ole Miss and UVA, but, you know, I came from University of Arizona and Arizona State, and so fan experience is a big part of. It's certainly not the only thing, but why do we physically go to a football game, not watch it on TV? And it amplifies that sense of I am at something cool. I am with people I like. I am having a team-based experience. You know, my people are here. And then it just really allows you to feel good about what you're doing. And then all the things that are driving fan experience now, everything from the work that we're doing in Pullman on Friday nights, downtown, on game day, Cougville, fireworks we're thinking a lot about, the new why am I blanking on the word? Inside the stadium,
Yeah,
all
sure.
the work that's going on inside the stadium will happen, and it will be mind-blowing, as it is if you've been at a big stadium with really modern scoreboard / music / technology / lights. It's very much, and actually I went to the Sphere for the first time in Las Vegas not very long ago, and it's kind of similar, not as all-encompassing, but it's really an absorbing and cool experience.
And I guess to that end, like, I don't know how much you can talk about it because I believe it's on the next Board of Regents meeting, but talking about upgrading the scoreboard and the LED lighting and all those amenities inside the stadium, correct?
So I would just say I believe that that's part of what we need to be doing for our fans. It's kind of not only is everybody else doing it, and it's really not just for our fans, our student athletes. It's not that they have an expectation, but boy, it makes them play a lot harder. It gives them energy. It gives them, as much as it gives fans, an excitement about being part of the Coug world.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, this one was big for a lot of us, but WSU recently, finally, expanded beer and wine sales in the stadium. So how does that then fit into that broader thought of fan engagement?
So I mean, the biggest thing is listening to fans in terms of what they want and working to make that happen. I know it took a long time, but it was also, some things are harder than they seem like they should be. Nonetheless, it is done, and I hope people find that it is as satisfying as you thought it would be to have beer and wine in the stadium. I think it is de rigueur at most football stadiums, unless you're in Utah. I have my Utah, so I worked in Utah for a few years, and the first day I got to Washington State University, I got a lot of gifts. 35 of them were bottles of wine.
Like, this is
And
a little
I said,
different.
I'm not in Utah anymore. But no, I mean, really, some things are harder than other things, but you tell us what you would like, what you believe is important for you as fans, and we will try to get it done.
And the nice thing is the third quarter starts and then the stadium's still full. So that's been an added benefit as well.
I didn't experience that part, but yeah, the stadium is still full after halftime.
All right, you said we have to compete
Yeah.
and win. So what does stepping up to support athletics look like for Cougar Nation right now?
Let me first, why do we have to compete and win now? So this is a really interesting time, and I say what I'm about to say a lot, and I mean it, and it can feel harsh. But our job right now is to focus on the future. That was why I was hired, not just the future of athletics, but to make sure this institution is not merely surviving, but viable and exciting and important for the state of Washington from now on out. And as you know, there's a lot coming for us. On the athletic side, competing and winning means in this new conference, which is, think of your team as part of a startup. A really exciting startup with, as it happens, pretty good facilities in the context of everybody else that's coming into the new pack. We must be winners. We must, in football, within 4 years, because that is the time that every single, today anyway, every single media rights contract across all of college football, every conference, is up for grabs again. And you will see another churn like we saw that ended up in the really devolution of the Pac-12 and all of that change. I am not going to prognosticate that it'll be that much change, but I frankly think it will be. And between now and then, not only do we have to compete and win in football in our conference, but we also have to exude the cool that comes with being part of a startup that we want everyone to pay attention to. It's not the old Pac-12, it is not the old P5, it's not the old glory. And I appreciate that, but we have got to focus on getting our young men and football and everything else that we do in athletics to this place within about 4 years. So what does that mean for NIL? It means right now, you're not going to like this, we are at the bottom of every team coming into the pack for football in NIL. We are at the bottom. We cannot stay there and compete and win. I need everybody's help and thoughts on how do we help all of us get over the disappointment of what happened with the Pac-12 and get on the bus of the future, which I believe, because, I've been at Pac-12 schools, but I've been at schools that came into the Pac, is going to be really interesting and incredible, but it will not be the thing that we did before. It will be the thing that we are about to do. And that, for me, that's my life, is coming into different situations and building from there and being what we believe, not just talking about it, but making it happen. And that's where we are, and that's where we have to go with NIL.
And I think there's a lot of thought with the new Pac-12. WSU very likely has its better chance than it ever has in making the college football playoff, because more years than not, one of the group of 5 representatives is likely going to become. So if we can just beat out your Boise States and your Fresno States and your Oregon States, we have a very good shot of being on that national stage at the end of the season.
So I'm going to go back to NIL for a minute because like it or not, for the next few years anyway, depending on what happens on the federal scene with regard to legislation that gets passed, and it's not going to happen tomorrow or this year or next year, in my opinion, NIL has a huge impact on what we are able to do competitively. We have an amazing football coach, by the way. I am absolutely convinced he's as good a coach, even at the place that he's in, as I've seen anywhere. But we need to give him all the tools. He needs all the tools all those other coaches have. So when you get people looking at us, they will see fans. They got to see fans. They got to see fan engagement. They got to see outsized fan engagement, because all they do today is look at whether you're in an urban area or not and make a prediction about what kinds of eyeballs are going to be on games. We outperform every single time they look at us from a media rights perspective. So we have to keep that going, keep people coming to Pullman for games. And there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do up here as well. But really understand and just get with the program on what is needed now. And I would say, we have a bunch of athletics staff members here, we are totally prepared to deliver for you.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about NIL, because we saw even just early last week, the university rolled out a new website around it, right? You're able to communicate, I think, a little more freely about NIL than you had been in the past. So what's your take on how WSU can navigate this space and take advantage of the opportunities here?
So when I came to Washington, without knowing the culture all that well, it looked to me like there's a lot of wealth in the state. And we did the same thing in Utah and even in Arizona, and really looked at like how much do people care about this place and what its value is. But the other things that we do at Washington State University, we are really able to sell Coug character. It means something, and those kids see it when they come to us. They just can't then say, and they say a lot, I really want that for myself, I want that for my parents. They can't do it when their financial offer, there's that sort of first level driver, but our character matters to an awful lot of these kids. We also go above and beyond in teaching them what it means to have wealth now when you are a very young man or woman, and we have NIL across the board. What does it mean to understand how to be responsible, responsive, how to understand all these kinds of marketing yourself things that many of these young people didn't really previously pay attention to unless and until they became professional athletes. Now it is in high school, and it's definitely in college. And we go out of our way to make sure that they know how to be responsible about that aspect of their service as a college athlete.
All right. You mentioned head coach Jimmy Rogers a little bit ago, but and everybody has seen him on the sidelines and how intense of a man he is. But what is it about him that you believe makes him the right fit for WSU?
So there's something. So I sit next to him on the plane to and from games every time we go to an away game. So I get a lot of Jimmy Rogers time. He's usually looking at the game. But I will say that his leadership style is incredibly compelling for the young men that are on our team. And to a kid, they want to be here for him. That is the kind of athletics leadership that you don't get all that often. You get a lot of, I call them bullies, but coaches whose style includes the introduction of fear and shame into the overall coaching methodology and style. We do not have that, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that leadership style.
And I think I've heard from so many people, too, that he is no nonsense, but he's also incredibly honest, right?
Yes,
and
he is.
In an age of college athletics where people are just trying to blow smoke all the time, these kids, to have that sort of honesty,
Yep.
I think kids see that and value it.
They
Does
do.
that sound right?
They do. They play for him. And man, if you were at the Ole Miss game or the UVA game, those young men played their hearts out in order to get to the place, and we garnered an enormous amount of attention. They were playing for that coach.
Yeah. All right, we're in Spokane, so let's talk about Spokane a little bit. What role do you see for Spokane and Eastern Washington playing in the future of Cougar athletics?
Well, certainly, look, Spokane is kind of the urban area here. We rely on you to exude Cougar pride. Cougs here. And actually, I don't care if you're a Cougar or not. If you're in Spokane, we are very important to you, and you are very important to us. We will be, because we have a campus here, and we are here all the time, we take our role, our service role to Spokane very seriously. We know we are part of the future of this city, and we hope that you know that you are part of the future of the entirety of Washington State University, no matter where it is in the state of Washington. But Eastern Washington also has its own very unique character. I appreciate it. I like it. And I think that the things that can be done, whether it's take the drive down and go to a game, whether it's a basketball game, which I'm secretly a really huge basketball fan, so I can't wait for basketball to just get rolling. I do wear ear protection, as I will when the scoreboard is going. But be proud fans and show that to the whole world. Many people who come to WSU Pullman start here in Spokane at the Spokane airport. And this is their initial view of Eastern Washington. So be proud.
WSU will always need Spokane to be engaged in athletics, for sure. All right, this was not on my list of questions, but I wanted to ask you this anyway, because I read this a couple of weeks ago, that at a September Board of Regents meeting, you told the people in attendance that we really need to step away from this underdog mentality
Yes.
at WSU and embrace being a world-class university.
Yes. So this is where I get to step on my evangelical stage. We do. But don't lose track of the fact that what we don't need to do is pretend that we're on an ivory tower pedestal. We are not. And that has been misinterpreted in the world of elitism as being the underdog. We are not. But we don't ever have to walk away from the fact that we get the job done. We get to work. You know, whether you graduated from WSU and you live and you're a tech bro in Seattle or San Francisco, you're that kind of person whose ground of being does not come from being elite. And don't let people interpret that as being an underdog. And don't be an underdog. Everything about WSU, if you look at the numbers and the data, says we are a fabulous institution. We deliver a fabulous education. Our research is unparalleled. Boy, this is such like a political discussion almost. When you let the other guys define what's great and what's not great, when you accept that, and you pretend that it's just some kind of competition, and and you look at your shoes, you aren't going to be able to do what we need to do, and you don't have to. So that's what I mean by, get rid of the underdog. And I do say this all the time. Please don't use Coug did in the negative connotation ever again.
Amen.
It really bothers me.
I think it bothers most of us in this
I was a little
room
more
here.
forceful the last time I said that. I said I will never speak to you again. But it undermines what we know about WSU and who we are and who all of you are. So don't do that to yourselves. You're good people.
All right, you are leading a system-wide redesign. So what kind of input are you hoping to gather from communities like Spokane?
Yeah, what input will we gather? So let's start with, why are we doing this? Everything that is happening to higher ed, federal administration notwithstanding, is bringing about this sort of disruption in what's going on with higher ed. So we're looking at about the 10-year out time frame and asking, given everything that you know in all of our communities, what functions do we have to serve in order to be the land grant that the state of Washington needs and your community needs in 10 years. 10 years is just far enough out so you kind of get a little bit away from the constraints of the now and go, all right, well, like if I'm a company, how am I really going to be using AI? If I'm an elected official, what really are my constituents going to be asked? Like, what are the challenges we're going to be facing at that time? And certainly if you're students or faculty, the same thing. So in each community, Spokane, Vancouver, Everett, Tri-Cities, our really rapidly growing online community, and Pullman, will be asking, what do you think you're going to need? Don't reflect for the whole world. Just talk about what you need. And we'll aggregate all that information. We started in Vancouver last week. I think we're in Everett this week or next week. We do a lot of work with companies to ask not so much what jobs do you have open now, what kind of people do you need, but what are you going to have in a decade when every single company, no matter what sector you're in, is actually seeing some change in how they're thinking about their workforce. We're definitely talking to community groups, all of our already affiliated advisors and those who just have something to say to us, talking to high schools, talking to primary schools, because those are the kids that are going to be going to college in a decade, talking to parents, and then of course our staff and our faculty and our students. So we're doing that at each location. We're getting kind of, and then we're also doing some survey-based work. If you get an emailed survey from us, please answer it. It's not a huge deal. Because I am who I am, which is I'm an engineer and I'm used to, I want enough data to really understand everything. We're going to take everything that we learn in whether we've taped it, audio taped it, videotaped it, gotten written, put it all into a data form that we can actually run an AI on it, and ask the questions, not only what does everyone say we need to be doing in a decade, but we're in different communities, and many of those communities have regional needs that are not like one another. They have companies that are not like one another. They have outcomes that are needed that are not like one another. I think Pullman will remain our kind of flagship everything to everybody campus, but everywhere else we really need to understand regional needs, and then how do the different kinds of students, in a decade, a large number of our students will not be young people. They will not be 17 to 25-year-olds who come to the Pullman campus and live in a dorm, which is in numbers-wise is most of our enrollees at the undergraduate level now. There will be many people who need what we have and what we do, who are older, who are place-bound, have families and jobs or many other things. We'll have to really expand the way that we deliver excellence and think about what does that really mean and how do we do it well. The learning platform for that right now is online, because most of our online students are not young, they're older. They have all kinds of needs, and they're telling us right now, how do we create community amongst people who already have some form of a community in their home and in their community in the physical community they live in. So that's what that's all about. It should end up with, in a year to a year and a half, a set of options for us to think about. They will include some substantive change. Programs we don't do anymore and new programs that we do. And then we will make a decision based on what's achievable.
That's kind of what was going through my mind when you're talking about that, when you're talking about AI and how that changes the workforce, and you're looking 10 years down the line. So you bring that back then to WSU and say, we need to create this major, or this needs to change in this certain way to meet those demands?
So I'm going to make something up, so please be kind, because I just made this up. But what if we look at it and we go, for the amount of money and I'd love to talk about funding, that we think we'll have, the amount of overall sort of revenue streams we think we'll have in a decade, we need to deliver most gen ed online and make sure that when you are specializing in your major, when you are really getting to the point where you need interaction with people in a team-like environment, because that's what most workplaces are like, or you're actually out in a workplace getting real-world experience, that could be that's a major shift in what we do now. But it could be the kind of thing that is recommended so that we can serve more people, not fewer, in a decade.
Very cool. All right, higher education, I think we all know this, is facing some big challenges right now. So what do you see as the biggest vector of change?
Well, so there are a few, but this may be I may be an outlier, but I think technology has been coming for us for 15 years, and it's been changing the way our students arrive to us. And what their expectations are that they know how to do when they leave, because they anticipate, probably rightly so, that the workplace will be very different from the time they start to the time they finish in 4 years. So we are definitely looking at the impacts of technology. Funding models, I have a very simplistic explanation, but I think it's important for all of you to understand that largely, if you're all Cougs and you went to WSU within the last 40 years, the model was tuition and state revenue. We had two levers. And the state was and has been incredibly generous in the state of Washington. We're historically maybe at the 30 to 40% of our total funding needs coming from the state of Washington. They're down at 20% now. I will tell you that is still more than most public universities in the US, who are down at the 6 to 7% of their total funding coming from their state, their central funding. We are going to drop. We cannot raise tuition. It is unconscionable to raise tuition that much. Tuition will have to go up incrementally. Our job is always not to keep the sticker price low, but to keep the total cost for you to graduate low and hopefully keep you out of any debt whatsoever. That's really the job that we focus on. But so our levers are not sufficient to the moment. When I talk about this, I say we have to find diversified revenue streams. Those of you in business areas that have gotten stuck out with one major client that's losing their money. So we are thinking about all kinds of things. We have some options. Some of them might require changes in state legislation, but we do think about how do we own our own future financially and make sure we have enough different forms of revenue to support what the state is going to need us to do, even when the state can't afford. So we have that obligation as a land grant, whether the state funds us or not. I believe we have an enduring, permanent obligation no matter how much money the state gives. We are the one university in Washington that cannot turn our back and say, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore. So we'll figure it out, but it's going to be complicated.
No doubt. All right, you've said that data proves college still matters, even though a lot of people seem to be challenging that these days. So how do we shift that conversation?
I don't have the answer. If I did, I would be famous. So we know for the last really 15 years, the conversation about higher ed has degraded in terms of the perception of value. That's perception. It is not ever really, except in some individual cases. Everybody's got, well, my cousin did this and went into debt and didn't do that. But by and large, all of the information on all of the college graduates with a bachelor's degree everywhere in the US, and certainly in Washington, is that if you get a bachelor's degree, your overall economic value over your lifetime will be vastly improved, and that of your children, whether they go to college or not. So you go to college, you improve the outcomes of your children. But that's not, I mean, this is sort of that moment where data doesn't matter. What matters is a bunch of other things, including, how do I feel about that? Am I welcome? And I think about, I frame this in a very unusual way, but I think it's important to think about. So right now, our undergraduate student body across the state is about 40% male and 60% female. That's really normal for the US right now. Lots of reasons, but I focus on the young men who choose not to go to college because they don't think they really quite belong there, and they go into a trade where they're making pretty decent money, but then after 10 years, they're beaten and broken. They've been using their hard muscles for that long, and they're starting to get a little bit older. They're married, they've got 2 kids, they're thinking, I should really be like starting to run a business or do something that, and I'm gonna need some education to do that. It needs to be utterly clear that we are available and here for that. And every other person of every other type that would want what we have and we are offering needs to feel like they can come and do that. So I don't have the answer to why has the narrative degraded around higher education, but it has, and not because the data says that's where we're going.
Sure. All right, a few months ago on a stage similar to this on the West Side, you told Eric Johnson at another CougsFirst event that you had not been to the Coug yet and signed the wall. So we got to ask, because a lot of people in here probably put their names on the wall there as well. Have you done it yet, or will you?
I have not, but I feel very clear at this point that I need like a whole squad to flank me and protect me.
I think Jack needs to lead the charge there.
Nothing crazy, Jack. No.
All right, we're gonna have to check
I know
back
it's
in
in
on
my
that
future.
in a few months. All right, so what's something that maybe you've discovered about life in Pullman or the Palouse that's really surprised you?
Oh, I had been coming here for I have a daughter who's just about to graduate, which will make me very sad, with a PhD from from Pullman. So I've been visiting her a bunch, and she's a real outdoorsy kid, so we have been, she's definitely not a kid anymore, really. I've been hiking, not since I started, when I haven't really had time to do it. So I'm not as surprised about the things that you would be if you didn't know all the cool places there are to go in Eastern Washington, at every level of amazingness. I'd been to a lot of them. She's got a list. Every Sunday she goes, all right, where are we going next? Where are we going next? It's really easy to get back and forth to Seattle, at least. I've done it at least 1,000 times already. There's a lot of so much goodness that I think the thing that maybe surprises me more than I thought is the lack of attention that's paid to improving downtown Pullman. So I'm personally on that. I'm on that bus. I'm on that bandwagon. I harass people every week. How are we going to be part of the team that makes that? And so think about alternative revenue streams. Pullman needs them. Pullman needs people who want to come there, and I'm making stuff up again, but go to the antique shops and go to the quilt fair every year. Because we obviously don't do that. But what is it that, how do we engage there?
I will say, as someone who graduated in the late 90s, downtown is a lot better than it was during that time.
Fair.
For sure, yeah. Well, and you mentioned your daughter there, so that piqued my curiosity. And coming to visit her and her going to WSU, that must have played a large factor in you considering this job.
Well, so I'm an engineer who worked in the national labs, and for those of you that don't know, one of the reasons that WSU became technically the way that it is very long ago was it was the main partner university for what is now the Pacific Northwest Laboratory and the Hanford site when they were built during the Manhattan Project in World War II. So we have had this capacity for decades and decades. And I worked with a lot of people who were joint appointment people between the PNNL and WSU almost my whole career. I'll tell you, Tri-Cities has changed a lot in that time. So I had this affinity, and I also, WSU, because it had great nuclear engineering and nuclear chemistry, had sent a lot of people into the labs. A lot of my partners in the laboratory got their degrees from WSU. So I had already had that affinity, and that brand is an amazing brand. And if you're in higher ed, you're in any sector, but if you're in higher ed and you see and you know there's a great brand, it's always something that makes you jealous. So for me, it was a real honor to be asked to apply for this role, and I fought it a little bit because I hadn't been at my prior institution for very long. But I did come to a moment where I thought, I'm never going to get this chance again. I'm not young. I'm not doing 10 more jobs. I'm not stair stepping. You know, this is it for me. So if you're going to go, go. And it was super nice to have Hannah here. You know, she. It's an interestingly public person job, unexpectedly. Like, you're really public, so it helps to have a 28-year-old who comes over and says, God, you know, let me tell you something, Mom.
That's social media.
Because not a lot of other people do that.
Well, I think it's safe to say we're all thankful that you accepted the job and are in Pullman now. So if you could create a brand new Cougar tradition, maybe just for us here in Spokane, what might that look like?
Yeah. So we talked a bit about this because I did have a sense of that. So here's what I think would be really cool is a Coug walk across the river just before Apple Cup. Not all the time, but just before Apple Cup, where we get that game day-like attention here in Spokane with Cougs and flags and you know, a huge parade of people walking across the river. Not just fans, but make it a huge party. On the Monroe Street Bridge and make a big deal. We could, having been to game day now, it's breathtakingly exciting and fun. We could make a thing.
Yeah, maybe all end up at Flat Stick Pub too, since that's a Cougar-owned establishment. I think we have time for a few more questions from the audience here before we send you all back into the exhibit hall for the actual CougsFirst show. And it's a small enough room. I think if you want to just raise your hand, I can point to you and you can probably shout it out. So does anybody have any questions for President Cantwell?
So we know that affordability is a real struggle today for students who are entering into college. And we know that there's a large student loan debt or student debt kind of crisis here in the United States. WSU has always been one of the more affordable institutions where you can get an excellent education. How do we plan to maintain that over the long term, knowing that we're losing state funding?
So let me tell you that we are, and we have been, and we are one of the most affordable. We do not send our students out on average with a lot of debt. If I recall, it's the average debt for a graduate, so more than 40%. This is, if anybody does know Pam Scott, who is a Spokane resident, she's our new marketing and communications lead, and someone I have worked with in the past. She is remarkable. But she's got, so we graduate what percent without debt at all? 54% of our students graduate with zero debt. And then something like the average debt for those who remain is $11,000 or $12,000. Yep. And it is dropping every year. So despite the fact that there are challenges, we have, and that's why I said we don't focus on sticker price, which matters for a lot of reasons because that's what you know, debt gets us up to. It matters for our bottom line, but we are really working on that average debt for our graduates. So with the state doing, you know, the things that I'm not worried about unless everything falls apart the equivalent of the Washington Promise. There are some pretty amazing financial aid options in Washington compared to the entire rest of the country. And what blows my mind is we're still only seeing something like right around 50% of our students in high school going to college, second lowest in the country, with really amazing, in legislation guaranteed financial aid from the state. That has nothing to do with what we get centrally. Our budget is dropping from the state. That's our central budget. That's not what everything that we get to offer for financial aid. Those come in from different budget lines from the state. I think we still are a massive bargain. What you get for the amount of debt that you're going to graduate with is an incredible bargain. I wouldn't, or it's just a really good deal.
I think we got a question over here.
Influence the state legislators. They're all from UW.
That's true. We hear all the time in Olympia, the purple hand that controls Olympia. We all vote here. We can all get in touch with our state legislators. What does WSU need from Olympia?
So I think there are 2 or 3 things that I think are important, and I will just tell you, and those of you that have heard me talk before have said, that at this moment in history, because of the challenges facing higher ed writ large, we need to be partners with UW. So I talk with Robert Jones on a pretty regular basis about how do we go visit the governor, how do we go visit the legislature together. I am not at all worried that my voice is lesser than Robert Jones. For those of you that have seen us together, it's not a problem. Coming across as an equal. So there are kind of 3 things. One is our research is under fire. It's going to affect UW even more than us, but it's going to drop our federal support for a lot of reasons. Some are very complex. This is the only state I've ever lived in, red or blue or purple, that doesn't have a state budget line supporting research at the R1 universities that says, we want to grow A, B, or C in the future. We want you to do research in that area. Yes, it's asking for more money, but it is really targeted at if the state of Washington is losing the incredible economic value of the federal resources for research that have been invested at WSU and UW, then the state needs to sit up and ask itself, what do we want to do about that? We also have an enormous, so help with that and just understanding the value. And I'm so shocked that most of our legislators, whether they're Cougs or other things, don't really think about higher ed very much. It's not, I've never lived any place. I've lived in, the East Coast. Every state feels very strongly about their top tier universities. And we're kind of, which boggles my mind. I don't get it. It's part of Washington culture. So to the extent that we can make the case that it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're from, or what you want to achieve in the future, or what you think the economic future of this state is, these 2 universities in particular are critically important to the future of this state. So those are big messages, and we can keep ours focused on WSU. But I think it's actually useful in this case to go, I'll give you a little factoid. So if UW, if you took out their kind of very large and very financially fruitful medical center, they're about the same size as we are in research, maybe even a little less. So we have been a $450 million a year research engine for the entire state. Most of our graduates live on the west side. They start businesses there. They are, purpose-built for that economy. Many, of course, are out here purpose-built for the economic regions and zones and enterprises that we have here. But yeah, we cannot take our eye off this ball, because None of the other, our 34 community colleges and our 4 other four-year institutions are not going to drive the economy. We are.
Paul doesn't need a microphone, I know that.
Let's spin a little different direction here. We're going to talk about the Mountain West and the Pac-12 lawsuit. I know there's certain things you can't talk about.
Like a lot of it.
You did a great job of getting Utah State into the new current Pac-12 when you were down there. If you could be Carnac, and when the Pac-12 does win the lawsuit, how is the direction of the new conference going to go with regards to maybe adding new teams, or how is that whole thing as you look at it? How do you think that's going to come out?
So let's frame it in what I was talking about earlier, which if you really acknowledge that you're a startup, you're not going to get ahead of yourself, because a few things are going to happen if you're really a startup. The market that you serve is going to shift and change, and you got to be flexible enough to understand the market and do what the market needs you to do. Do we think that might happen year on year? Maybe not, but maybe every 2 years. So we see that whole market, and our flexibility at this point is not getting ahead of ourselves. It is understanding the market and looking at things like, why did a Utah State or a Texas State come into the PAC? So that means we aren't out there trying to get more and do more. We are very much solidifying our brand, our value proposition. We know the minute we start playing conference football, the neon lights are going to be on us because of the brand. And we can afford to wait. So that's what we'll do.
Right here in the middle. Yeah.
So, is there anything specific that we're doing to set up graduates with the ability to actually get a job in the market?
There are many things that we do to set up our graduates to actually get a job. And they're successful things at the moment. In my opinion, so I was tell this, so my nephew, my beloved nephew, lives with me. He's like 22 and this big around, 6'5", probably weighs 100 pounds. But he just graduated from Oregon State, fair, came to live with me, went to our job fair so we had a job fair for our engineering students. You can go no matter where you're from, and you can go at any stage in your career at WSU. Just go talk to people. They're there to talk. It filled the basketball stadium, and people are getting actual jobs. I think the more challenging thing is how much workforce demands are currently focusing more and more on real-world experiences by the time that you graduate. And we have all kinds of things. I'm an engineer, we've always done this, right? You have to do a capstone project with a company. You got to intern, all this stuff. We have to do that across the board in every major. And that's not as easy as it sounds, nor as hard. And what I tell, and I will tell all of you who run companies, find a way to bring in 2 more students a year into, it doesn't have to be the formal kind of internship. And yes, I know it takes time and effort, but these people, what you're basically able to do is have them hit the ground running when they graduate and they come and work for you. So it's a really important investment to make. So and it's not that there's pushback from companies, but nobody really knows how to do this, I call it at scale, better than we are doing it now.
All right, maybe I have time for 1 or 2 more right here in front.
You can come back. I think you should get a degree.
Coach Rogers is an amazing individual. His communication skills, the way he works with the students, all of that kind of stuff is really amazing. But the world is about NIL. And all of these young men, because mostly it's football, are looking for that NIL deal. Some of these high school kids already have
completely agree, and you're saying what I say. So you can come on my radio show, and we'll talk together about, this is a moment, and please don't misinterpret that these young men to come to us, NIL matters, because money matters to all of us more than anything. But these are not mercenary kids. They want to play good football. They want to play for a good coach. They want to be part of a team experience, but money is massively important to many of these young men. Many of them come from families where the difference between a low offer and a high, it's material to their families. So what I have said, and especially maybe more voice, remember I've been here 6 months, is now is the time to acknowledge where we are in the system, what the system is doing, and yes, it's a changing system, but if we are believers, then our job is to provide Coach Rogers with all the tools that we can so that he can give the young men who come here to play football the experience that he's able to deliver for them. But we are not going to compete and win if we don't have millions more in NIL than, I mean, just, I don't even want to put the number out there, but we are so far below others in a world of where the capacity and the caring for Cougs is there. I see the pride. I see the care. So one way or another, it's my time and effort personally is more than 50% on how do we get, and I want to support this coach. I want this to work. And the equation has been simple in my mind, and I think it's still simple. Fan experience, number one, just to make sure we get that scoreboard. Number two is NIL, and I will be out there everywhere all the time saying that and explaining it the way I do it. I might have to, hone my narrative, but I think it's a simple equation now, and we have the ability. It's not that we don't have the ability to do this. We have the ability to do this. So how I hone my narrative to make sure that people understand that we just got to get it done is really, so any help, and again, you can be on my podcast that I'm going to start tomorrow so we can be on it together.
You're the first guest. I mean, and just think, if you mentioned the 250,000 living alumni, just imagine if 10% of them join the 1890 Club, right? You give up 3 Starbucks trips a month to support WSU athletics.
Totally.
It would make a huge difference in what we're able to do on the field, on the court, and what have you. So, all right. I was told to get you guys out of here by 3:50. I need to listen to what I'm being told. President Cantwell, thank you. This is really an enlightening conversation.
My
I hope
pleasure.
you guys all found it too. I got to run off and do the 5 o'clock news, but all of you need to get in there and check out all the Cougar-owned booths for CougsFirst. Thanks for having me.